So I originally was going to talk in depth about all 3 of my D-Glow rounds, but I decided that was going to be a little bit lengthy, so I did go through one round, kind of like the lowlights, the highlights of it, and then I'm going to be talking about what I was expecting from the event and then just my thoughts on the event overall, so hopefully you guys enjoy this. I played my first Disc Golf Pro Tour event, and this is what happened. And before you ask, no, I didn't cash. I played pretty bad, let's be honest. But I'll show you the signatures I got. Calvin Heimberg, Eric Oakley, on a disc that's actually in my bag. Kind of a mistake, but a bigger mistake was to get Philo and Emerson Keith on a disc in a very light Sharpie that you can hardly see on camera. And you can hardly see in person too. It's on a white disc. It would be okay on like maybe a black disc or something. But one thing I noticed is they didn't really like signing the discs, or at least Philo. Philo was the one that really stood out to me. Calvin and Eric actually played through on a practice round, so that was just kind of by chance. I ran into Philo before my first tee time on the round 1, and he just seemed like he was very annoyed with it. So as soon as that happened, I was just kind of like, okay, it's not even like fun to get a signature. The only signature I really wanted was Simon's, because he's one of my favorite players, if not my favorite, or Eagle. Both of them are easily my favorites, most entertaining for me. I got Emerson Keith's signature because he was actually watching us tee off. I think his brother or something was like media or something. I'm not exactly sure who it was. It was his friend or something. And he was just watching us tee off. So let's start off hole 1, round 1. Like I said, Emerson Keith is just sitting right there watching. So that is some added pressure. But they announce your name and then you go tee off. I'm not used to that at all. And that just kind of threw me off guard, and I was like just kind of, really nervous. First throw of the huge tournament, my biggest tournament ever, and I kind of shanked it, but I did lay up outside the circle putt, and I made that for 3. So I thought, great start. Let's fast forward onto the moments in the round that are important to mention. So hole 3, I think this is important because there's a big backup. Finally, our card gets a tee. Philo's card is right behind us, and I'm like, dude, this guy just signed my disc. I better throw some good shots. So my tee shot, hole 3 toboggan. I throw it straight down the hill, super low sidearm, very safe, and I'm actually on top of the ridge next to the field. I have a awesome lie, surprisingly, and I put it like 15 to 20 feet away. I was so happy because I took a 5, which is a bogey on hole 2. Now, being 20 feet, 15 feet away, I don't know why I was nervous round 1. I don't know, I was still nervous, and I chained out. So, you already know how this round's going to go. Now, before I get into the next hole, we got to go a little bit backstory. So, 2 weeks ago, I won an event in MPO, as an MPO, and so I had a lot of confidence coming to this. I thought I was going to play decent. I didn't think I was going to potentially, just blow everyone out of the water, but I thought, I'd shoot a couple down, and I'd be cashing for sure. 2 days before the tournament, I lose my most important driver that's in my bag. It's like a slightly flippy Pro Wraith, but it still fights back at the end. It was my go-to driver. You've seen me throw it in tons of videos on this channel, and I didn't have that. That's the disc I threw for this hole. That's the only shot I practiced was with that driver. So I was trying to make do. And basically, I threw my understable Pro Wraith, and it became a roller. I think I ended up taking a par, maybe a bogey first round. But anyways, let's move on to the next hole, which is super short. It's just like a little flick up there. It's kind of luck, and you can do a backhand turnover, but I was probably like 70, 80 feet away, and I ran the putt. I was probably only 20, 25 feet past, but since I was so nervous about that chain out, I was like, all right, just throw this down into the basket, and I caged out. And I took a 4 on that little par 3, and I was not feeling good. Next hole comes around. This is an important moment. I have an awesome drive. It lands right about here, and I have this little gap, and I throw a sidearm, and I'm probably about 20 feet away. This is an awesome shot, another birdie opportunity, and I hit the cage and just take a 4. And so far, I'm not feeling too bad about what's going on. But let's fast forward to hole 10, the big turnover shot or huge sidearm, or just play safe for a 3, which is what I should have did in round 1 because I hit the bush right here in the center of the fairway. Wasn't too bad. I tried to throw a sidearm and it went a little bit too far, and basically what happened is I threw my putter straight into the rough, right side of the basket, and I don't know, I threw it too hard. I didn't feel right or something. I just threw it too hard. I was nervous or something, and then I had a tricky out, and I thought my out was amazing. I thought, okay, it's going to be right there. Easy tapping for bogey, just because I'm in the rough. I can't really do anything. Can't get the 3 at this point. But it rolls down the hill, and then I have to lay up for a 5. Now let's fast forward even more to hole 15, which is potentially one of the easiest birdies on the course. Like if you're trying to get a 3, one of the easiest 3s on the course. So I put it pretty much right in the middle. I actually hit a tree branch, and I was going to throw a big sidearm, like have it flip up and then go all the way down the hill. But I hit a tree branch, and I ended up in the middle, and I was like, okay, this is fine. I take a mid-range. It ends up left of the basket, right outside circle 2, so probably 35 feet. And I see this huge slanting hill, and I'm like, well, turbo, if I miss, it's going to go right, and it's going to go right down the hill. So I just didn't take any time. I just threw a backhand, and I actually hit the band. It was like straight on. I hit the band straight on, and the disc rolls straight back to me. And then I just have to lay up and then take, I think it was a bogey. So at the end of round 1, I actually ended up +7. It was not very good. So final thoughts on the event and things I learned. So one thing I was hoping is that they were going to be selling some older Discraft discs, because I prefer a lot of the older plastics and molds that they used to make. So I thought they were going to bring some random stuff out, but I talked to a bunch of the staff, and they were only selling the new stuff, and I don't have any problem with the new stuff. It's just not stuff that I like to throw. And another thing is there's no spectators allowed at this event, so if you do want to go buy discs after your very long toboggan round, you're gonna have to drive to the party store instead of driving straight home. And honestly, that wouldn't be a big deal, but the party store is like the opposite way that I would take out of the park, so it wasn't really a stop for me. And I could have went and saw Paul Macbeth after the round if I really wanted to, and maybe got a disc or 2. But yeah, I just didn't really want to buy any new Discraft discs. So another thing I was kind of surprised about was we had scorekeepers, which was awesome. We had spotters, which was awesome. But I thought the scorekeepers would be a little bit more official. They were actually asking us, you know, what the scores were sometimes, and it's like they weren't paying attention or something. I mean, they were volunteering, and they were just walking with us, and I thought it was cool, but also I thought it was a little bit unprofessional considering it's like a pro tour event. I'm sure like the cards with media coverage and everything, they were a lot more serious and whatnot. I was expecting them to occasionally time us if we were taking too long, like on our shots, and that would have been really useful for my first round, because a couple of my card mates took a really long time on a couple of shots, and I don't have a huge problem with it. But if it becomes like a pattern of, you know, every other hole you're taking 2 minutes on a single shot out of the rough or something like that, then it gets kind of lengthy and extensive. So a couple things I learned from D-Glow that will definitely help people who are up and coming and want to start playing pro. So the first thing I definitely learned firsthand is sometimes it's way better to just club down, throw a putter mid-range instead of a driver, even if it's a really long hole, just so you can get that placement and be safe, have good footing. Because toboggan, a lot of it was like, even if you have a good shot, you need good footing so your second shot you can throw far instead of just like a step out sidearm, which I had to do a couple times, and that's only going like 320 feet max. When I'm standing, like 1 foot's on the side of a hill and then 1's on the ground, right? Like I don't have any power there, so I'm just like throwing the most understable disc I can, hoping for the best. There's hole 3, which is 915 feet or something like that. One of my card mates who shot -6 the first round, he actually threw a Luna off the tee, and he had a bad tee shot, but like the thought of throwing a putter on that hole is kind of strange to me at first. And then, I mean, it seems like a good idea, to be honest. I got lucky and stayed in the fairway, but throwing a driver, it's so easy to go OB unless you really slam on it and throw it down, nose down, and make sure it's in the middle. It's a very slim fairway from up there, but it doesn't really seem like it until you play the hole yourself. The second thing I definitely learned is sometimes it's okay to deviate from your original plan. So even if you've been doing the same thing in practice, you gotta sometimes be adaptive to what's going on. Especially if you're tired and your arm is a little bit sore or something, sometimes you're gonna change to a different disc so you don't have to throw as hard or whatever, so you can throw a good shot still. And one of the things I was doing on hole 1, I was changing disc pretty much every round, and it got a little bit better. But in practice, I was throwing the most overstable of the 3, and I was probably circle 2 close to circle 1 every time. But in the tournament, I just wasn't throwing as hard as I normally was. So I kind of picked up on that. And then the final round, I was probably like 45 feet away. I didn't hit the putt, but still, it felt really good to be having the best drive in the group. The next thing I learned is these kind of tournaments bring out a lot of your flaws, like these huge par 4s and stuff like that. If you're not used to playing in these open fields and tight fairways and stuff like that, you're gonna learn real quick what kind of things you need to work on. Now, I feel like 10% of my game was affected by me losing my favorite driver of all time, but obviously the other 90% is something I can work on. So I'm more of like a woods player for sure, and I can throw decently far, but this course has really opened it up to me to let me know that I still need to go to the field and practice on my distance, practice on my form, because I can definitely throw a lot farther than I can right now. Even though I'm throwing pretty decent, you know, seeing all these pros throw so much farther than me kind of really opened up my eyes and also showed me other things I need to work on. The last thing I learned the hard way is the worse you do, the earlier next tee time is going to be. Now, I don't know if this is every tournament, but it would make sense because the media coverage, they are going to take a minute to set up everything. So that's usually why the media coverage is around the last card. And also the last card is not really going to have anyone in front of them or only one card in front of them. So there's not going to be like a huge backup or anything, if there is a backup at all. But the next time you play the big tournament, you'll have that motivation to play better so you can sleep in a little longer and you don't have to be up so early. Or at least that's what I'm going to be thinking about next time I play a big tournament. Anyways guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. Comment down below, how was your first Pro Tour event if you played a Pro Tour event? I would like to know how you did compared to me. I mean, you probably did better. I hope you did better. But anyways guys, I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Peace.